It was supposed to be just another night. Clouds hung low over the polished German border, the kind of heavy, brooding sky that smothers sound and slows down time. The military base near the eastern flank of NATO operated like clockwork shift. Rotations, radar sweeps, drones humming quietly above. German officers stood under fluorescent lights, monitoring green-lit maps, and watching monitors flicker with routine data. They were confident, safe, untouchable. And then, within a span of just 180 seconds, that illusion collapsed in fire. There was no warning, no sirens, just silence. Then light. A massive eruption lit the horizon, followed by a shockwave that rolled across the countryside like the roar of a monstrous beast. Russian hypersonic missiles launched from deep inside Kaliningrad had reached their targets. Not one, not two, three separate impacts. Simultaneously, with surgical precision, the first missile tore through a NATO ammunition storage facility, housing long-range Storm Shadow cruise missiles. The second struck a command bunker believed to be coordinating weapons delivery to Ukraine. And the third, perhaps the most devastating, drilled into an underground communication node fortified with multiple layers of reinforced concrete. That bunker no longer exists. What remains is a crater wide enough to swallow a passenger jet. Within minutes, fire engulfed the area. Drone footage, captured accidentally by automated patrols, revealed scenes that would soon circle the globe. A red sky, pillars of smoke, metal structures bent like paper, and burning flags flapping in the wind. Berlin was silent at first. Then came the rage, panic, confusion. Inside the German Ministry of Defense, the atmosphere turned electric. Phones rang non-stop. Emergency briefings, NATO codes, satellite confirmation. Chancellor Scholz stood stiff, speechless, watching the red glow on the monitors as officials whispered behind closed doors. For the first time in decades, the German establishment had no answers, only questions. How did they breach our defenses? Why didn't the IRIS-T or Patriot batteries intercept them? What else is vulnerable? The truth was far more unsettling. These weren't traditional missiles. They were Russia's new generation hypersonic weapons. Kinzhal, possibly even moving at speeds over Mach 9, untrackable, unstoppable, unthinkable die morning. Germany was on fire, not physically, but politically. Bundestag sessions turned into battlegrounds, shouting accusations. One side blamed Russia, the other blamed NATO, but everyone felt it. The protective curtain had been ripped apart. What was once theory a distant war was now blazing. At their doorstep, the German public awoke to chaos. News anchors fought back panic. Hashtags like #We are not safe and #NATO failed trended within hours. Thousands marched in the streets of Berlin, Hamburg, Munich. Some demanded peace, others screamed for war. A mother held up a sign that read, "Why did my son die in someone else's game?" At NATO headquarters in Brussels, a crisis summit was called within minutes. American, French, British generals dialed into encrypted rooms. Everyone waited for Washington to speak, but America remained silent. The president didn't tweet. The Pentagon issued no statements, only quiet coordination. Behind thick doors, because the reality was clear, any direct response could trigger World War III. And so, the West hesitated. Russia did not, officially. The Russian Ministry of Defense released a single cold sentence. A military facility containing weapons threatening Russian territory was neutralized. No celebration, no bravado, just finality. That silence spoke, louder than any propaganda. Moscow wasn't looking for praise, it was asserting dominance, calmly, efficiently, with terrifying restraint. Meanwhile, France questioned its commitment to the alliance. Poland demanded immediate American boots on its soil. Hungary closed borders. Turkey warned of escalation. The European Union, the great symbol of unity, now looked like a cracked mirror, each nation staring at its own fractured reflection, asking, "Are we next?" Germany, once the confident economic powerhouse, now faced its own vulnerability. Reports emerged that key infrastructure could be next. Communications, towers, energy plants, railways. The fear wasn't in what had happened, the fear was in what hadn't. Because if Russia had the precision to strike just 3 times, it also had the power to strike 30.4 German soldiers stationed near the blast zone. The air still smelled like iron and fire. Recovery teams worked day and night, pulling twisted metal and burnt electronics from the rubble. One soldier described it as the apocalypse. Without the sky falling, another just stared at the wreckage and muttered, "We were never ready." Political pressure mounted fast. German defense officials called for the urgent deployment of Israeli Iron Dome systems, more American dot interceptors, and a complete overhaul of the Bundeswehr's command network. Billions were pledged overnight, but tech takes time, and Russian missiles don't wait. In underground circles, whispers grew louder that among the destroyed targets were American military advisors, unconfirmed casualties that Washington refused to acknowledge. The implication? Russia wasn't just targeting weapons, it was targeting personnel, and so the question grew. Not will NATO respond, but can NATO respond? Can it afford to retaliate? Can it absorb another blow? Can it survive the next strike? In Moscow, none of this seemed to matter. Their state media carried on with usual programming: military parades, patriotic songs, space launches, children swearing oaths in military academies. A chilling contrast to the panic unfolding across the West. Where Germany saw failure, Russia saw a test passed. Where NATO hesitated, Russia acted. 3 days later, a new launch was detected. A single missile. No one knew where it was headed. Panic returned. NATO scrambled jets. Civilians in Warsaw and Vilnius were told to seek shelter, but the missile never landed. It flew high and then disappeared over the Baltic. Was it a drill, a warning, or just Russia showing that it could reach anywhere, at any time? The silence after that flight was deafening. Inside Berlin, another meeting, this time behind bulletproof glass. Intelligence analysts laid out new maps. A red line circled every NATO base within 800 kilometers of Kaliningrad. Some German officials wanted to call for peace negotiations. Others wanted to invoke Article 5 of the NATO Charter, mutual defense, but no one dared say it out loud. They weren't sure Article 5 would work this time. What if one nation refused? What if two? The unity they once boasted now felt like wet paper in a burning room. And outside, in the real world, people grew restless. Students skipped class to protest. Supermarket shelves were emptied of bottled water. Emergency siren tests ran twice a day. Old Cold War bunkers were reopened for the first time in decades. It wasn't just the military preparing for escalation. It was society. Slowly, quietly, desperately. And somewhere near the border, a German mother stands before the ruins of the base. Her son had been stationed there. She's holding his helmet. Her other hand clutches a framed photograph. She says nothing. She doesn't cry. She just stares at the crater, her lips whispering words that no microphone catches. Because she knows, like so many now understand, this war isn't over there anymore. It's here.